developments and learning. With us today here, we have three senior practitioners from the HR ecosphere our infrastructure and services sector. He has been associated with companies like L&T and Blue Dart. Currently, he's the head HR at L&T, and he's responsible for the overall roadmap for HR, people strategy, talent acquisition, and talent engagement. Just a correction, he head HR for L&T Constructions. We also have it here Mr. Sabih Kidwai. He has some 26 years of experience in the industry with associations in organizations like Rockwell Automation and Schneider. He is currently Director Talent Management and Organizational Development at Schneider Electric. And he's focusing mostly on helping individuals and organizations discover their potential and unleash possibilities. We also have it here Dolon Mitra, who's VP Customer Solutions at Think Talent. She is responsible for leadership team facilitation, executive coaching, and assessments. Prior to her consulting career, she has also worked in organizations like KPMG, JP Morgan, and Sapient. A few things to keep in mind before we begin. As we are using Zoom webinar, your video will be off and you will be put on mute centrally. This is to minimize distractions. If you have any questions during the session, we request you to put them in the question and answer section, which you will see below. And after the discussion, the panelists can take up those questions. This video is also being recorded and is being live streamed on YouTube. We can get this started. Dolon, over to you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Tanu, for setting the context, and welcome to all the guests who have already joined in. So as you know, we have two senior people from HR fraternity with us who will be sharing their perspectives, their anecdotal examples, some funny scenarios perhaps, and definitely the deeper and the high level perspective that they have on the topic that we are going to discuss today, right? And the topic for our discussion today is upskilling, which obviously is of paramount focus and criticality for organizations in the present world, right? And within upskilling also, what we are going to focus on is integration of various developmental aspects, which may be learning, assessment, career pathing, as an integrated phase, which is presented to the employees, right? So saying that, without much ado, what I will do is I will open the floor for Sabih and Barttanu. So Sabih and Barttanu, again, thank you very much for joining us in the webinar today. As you know, converging learning and work is becoming super critical for organizations in the present world, right? So perhaps I may want to start with you, Sabih, is that how do you or what do you observe in the real life organizational scenario as far as whether organizations are actually being able to give an integrated phase of development to their end users or their employees in the present time?
Sure. Thanks, Dolon, and thank you for inviting. I'm happy to be here to share whatever we do and also to learn from both of you here. So
your pearls of wisdom, as I said at the beginning, your pearls of wisdom.
Yes. Thank you. So, talking of the importance of this integration, I think it was always important. It has always been important to connect the learning, the assessments to the career path for the employees. That has always been relevant and it has always been important. In fact, the magic really happens when at the convergence of the two, when the organizational needs and the employee needs and aspirations, actually the convergence of it is where the best comes out. So it has always been relevant. It has always been important. The challenge in the past has been the technology to be able to keep it all connected and keep it all easily accessible for references. So that has been the challenge in the past. With the digitization, with the new tools coming in, organizations are gradually moving in there. Artificial intelligence, machine learning can add to it, but honestly, it is still more in discussions than on the ground seen. Organizations have started using the technology to put it at one place in a connected way, and which is helping. But it's a journey. We've started the journey, I must say. There's a lot of possibilities that are evolving as we are seeing the technology becoming easy and cheaper. We'll see more of it happening, but it has always been relevant. The point that I wanted to make was that it's not that it is now becoming more critical. Right. It has always been very, very critical and important, and it continues to be so.
Right. Thanks, Sabih, for that. I think one of the most important things which I pick up is it has always been relevant, but I think now it is very openly being discussed, and that is absolutely there in the brand recall of each and every professional, whosoever is in the people's business. Okay. Saying that, I would like to take the same question to you, Barttanu. And obviously, we understand that integration is very critical, but that level of urgency to perhaps bring that about, do you see that same level of urgency across all sectors, across all career stages? Or what is your thinking on that?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this panel. And it is always a two-way process, like Sabin said. We will also learn from the consulting and other experiences that you people have. I think this assessment and development and feedback are all integrated, we know. But to be very honest and frank with you, it has not happened. And somehow, people look at very short-term objectives, especially at the leadership level, and maybe Q1 or maybe 1 year to the other year. And in a long-term basis, initiating developmental steps, people are doing. There are companies in India, they are doing it, both multinational and Indian conglomerate and some public sectors. But to be very frank with you, again, they are all in silo.
Right.
Off late, at least some HR leaders and business leaders are thinking that, they are also very far and few, let me tell you. And after I came here in this heavy civil infrastructure, we have started thinking about that, this needs to be integrated in a manner which will bring the change. I'm not interested in training people and wasting everyone's time, right? While that may be required.
Yeah, Barttanu, let me just stop you there. I think you make a very pertinent point in a manner that will bring about the change, either in the thought process of the people or in the processes of the organizations. So can you just focus on that a little bit, as in what is the way in which the actual change can be perceived and felt by the people?
No, that is what I'm saying. I'm saying that, yes, all the time assessment happens, performance assessment happens, feedback provided sometimes, but in a, sometimes not in a way that individual gets convinced. Somewhere it happens, somewhere it does not happen, somewhere it happens to just to keep a record or maybe comply to the systems. But it does not bring about very marginal changes may be happening. It does not bring about the changes that is required. So the point of changes that I'm saying, I may be able to make a system change and process change, but what is that aimed for? The ultimate objective and target or outcome is to bring change in that individual.
Right.
So that which is also seen and felt by others.
Right.
He himself realizes that, yes, I am moving from point A to point B, and that is in the direction of my potential actualization, and that is what I aspire to be. Someone has heard my aspiration, and that is the entire concept of positive psychology. And the world, the way we are moving in terms of volatility, in terms of some disruption, fast changes, and flexible expectations are required. We need people who have the courage, who have the guts, who have the what we call the vertiva, or maybe the mental strength and power to bring those lead from the front. It is not the number of years, right?
Absolutely.
And these kind of things may continue for a long time. So then what I'm saying is,
So Barttanu, you bring about a very good point, which is the thought process of the people, the way it is changing. So, there is a lot of discussion, and I guess what we really would like to balance in this discussion is the discussions which are going on, a lot of noise which is going on, and what we see actually or reality on the floor of the organizations. So there's again a lot of discussion around the entire concept of career path, So with this gig economy, as in there are many organizations for whom the globe has become the platform. So for example, we had a small work to do and we reached or we started looking at options on this particular platform where there are specialists. And believe me, most of the responses we got were from Europe and Turkey and things like that rather than from India. Okay. So looking at this entire concept of gig economy and the uncertainties in the organizations that we see, do you feel that the entire concept of career path has changed in the minds of the people? Because we hear, again, conceptually, we hear that we are moving away from career ladder to the concept of career ladders to perhaps a spiral career path, which is being discussed of as of now. So again, I would like to start with Sabih. So what are you really perceiving on the ground, and how much of that you think is reality and how much of that is perhaps a lot of discussion that we see or hear on the internet and just carried away with that discussion?
That's interesting. Yes, but I think there is definitely a reality and we can't escape that, is that the organizations are changing, have changed. And the evolution of the organization and the way we work is much faster than we thought it or we think it to be. So with all this technology creeping in and all this gig economy shaping, I think for sure careers are going to be very, very different than what it has been in the past, what it has been for you and me. It will be very different for the next generation. And this understanding and realization has to seep in the organization. It's important because gone are the days when I will be able to tell someone that how would he or she grow in the organization. I will not be able to, in spite of the best of my interest and in spite of the best of the opportunities that the organization may have. That ability is constrained because of the way it is evolving, the number of roles, the kind of roles that are coming up, and even the same role, the way it has to be delivered. An HR manager, using just as an example, the kind of tools and the kind of technology that one is expected to use and the kind of value that one is expected to bring in augmenting what the technology is doing is very, very different from an HR manager in the past. So this has evolved. So we will not be able to provide career paths. I don't see we will be able to define and make those hierarchies and those ladders that we used to do in the past. This will be more of experiences. This will be more of opportunities and exposures that would their way. And what we have to prepare them is that how to find, how to understand yourself, how to assess yourself, and then how to find the right opportunity. That's the kind of work. Now, a lot of organizations are thinking in that direction. Some have, for example, using our example at Schneider, we've brought in the concept of what we call the open talent market.
Okay.
This is an open talent market where all of our employees are expected to have a profile, where they could identify what are they doing, etc. But they can also put in what are their inclinations, what are their aspirations. So I am in HR and I want to be in strategy. I have an opportunity to put in there. And all the opportunities in the organization that are put on that open talent market, the AI tool, it is artificially intelligent machine, it would pull in the people who could possibly be fitting in that role, including those who may not have experience but have aspirations.
Okay. Yes.
So that's an interesting move. So and the whole, so this is a big shift in the way we are managing careers and we are managing people and their aspirations. It is complex and it brings in a lot of added nuances to it. So how do you then manage organization structures? How do you then manage businesses? Because so there were all those things that we had, that how can I let someone go who's just joined me a year back?
Right.
As a manager, I would not be very comfortable with it. But then the idea is that if I don't let him go internally, he'll go out somewhere.
Right.
But this is a big mind shift, and we're trying to bring in. So, to keep it short, and I can talk more on this and other things, but the point is that the career path, the way we are used to, and the careers that we are used to has changed, and organizations and businesses have to evolve to align to the new reality. Some of us are aligning, and then it is bringing in more additional challenges, of course.
Right. So from moving from prescriptive, whatever was aligned, I think we are moving towards aspirational, trying to cater to the aspirational aspects of people also, because that's something which is becoming very valuable. So I just
Right.
thought about one particular company which actually did a career fair within the organization, just telling them about what the various options are.
Right.
And after that, actually, the significant impacts were attrition went down, employees' satisfaction scores went up, because, and not just letting the information flow, there needs to be an entire infrastructure of helping the employee moving from where they are to where they are going
Right.
to go in terms of systems, processes, as well as mindset. I think that is very, very critical. Thanks, Sabih, for that. Now, Barttanu, coming to you, I guess you bring a very important perspective that what we are discussing may not necessarily all of it be there visible on the floor, right? So my question is that all these people are coming from the same source. So if we are talking about the junior level or the middle level, they're coming typically from the same education background, same colleges, same universities, and going to different places. Why is it that in some place, the expectation that they are having from the organization to some extent is a little different from what they are expressing in other organizations? Why and how do you think the change is coming about?
No, actually, what is happening is people are, especially if you look at the campuses, people come for employment, keeping the employment in mind, job in the mind, right? When they enter into an organization, they will have something deeper in their mind, something inner career aspiration or objective is there. And that gets more what we call more deeper when they enter into an organization. When it does not fit, we are seeing that lot of, not only in our company but also outside, also you see they are the best of the guys, but when they come, they get distracted by something else. They want to pursue something else, right? And therefore, whosoever remains in the company, it is our effort how to channelize them, how to give them a path in a very integrated manner, show them that yes, this is what is there for you, and how, like you said, we are there to help you to look at the larger picture in terms of your career. And it is not necessary that you have to move from one company to the other company. You can always, your objective should be, you know role fulfillment and expanding your capacity and capability, remaining within one. So how to take on challenges, how to expand yourself, how to grow yourself in terms of delivering challenging and that kind of situations, and then expand your capability. And if that kind of opportunities and options are available, and HR can play that role and bring your entire assessment, feedback, and development and customized to the individual, right? Which is absolutely what we call rolled into his future kind of growth aspects, and then there is a rigor in it. What my own experience in last 3 decades is that we have been all talking about performance assessment, feedback, development center, IDP, and then coaching, mentoring, but rigor is missing in an integrated way. This is what I can say, and nobody owns it. Nobody is the
Do you
owner.
think this rigor is missing, and what are the 2 or 3 things, if we can actually plug it, this rigor can come back to the process?
No, the actual issue of measurement, which processes of HR, every CEO, if you hear, they talk about the key talents are not available, succession planning is a challenge. I do not, the kind of talent and skill set competencies that I want, who would be driving the business, are not there. We all listen to that, but we do not do what is required to bring that change. Again, I'm coming back to that change aspect. Let us say again you do a assessment center. I had done sometime a large group of people in 2004 and 5. We found 10% are only falling in the top high potential. That matched with the our overall performance assessment also was like that.
Sure.
Very minor variations was there, so it is 10
Sure.
to 12%.
Okay.
Now let me say like this: are we really measuring and giving a target that will move it to 20%? So that kind of rigor and deeper involvement of leaders and HR is required to give them that integrated path at every stage, which is linked to their future career aspiration, and you really handhold them. Then only your retention and then capacity building that we are talking of will happen in a manner that we want. And today, if you see someone at a junior level is a identified potential, he has got some input, and middle level nobody is taking care of them. He has not got any input. And then even if he moves to the senior level, maybe he has not got any input, and after that he becomes a non-potential. First level he will be a high potential. So my point is how to channelize them in a path. They remain as a high potential and see that career aspirations in them. So therefore we have to come out with a very integrated and strong, robust system of leave your all other maybe training and development. Keep a channel, someone else let him do it. Let a exclusive create a platform to who will drive all these things. Then only it will happen. I was coming from that perspective.
So, no, I think you make a very important point in terms of measures. What are the things that we are actually going to measure and put the complete sense of ownership as to who is owning this process and bringing about that change. I think that these would be two very important things to keep in mind to ensure that a process is actually delivering to what it has been designed to deliver. Okay. So I think from there we can extrapolate that often what happens, we take a lot on our plate, so in terms of these processes, there is a lot of speed and agility with which we move and we try to implement processes, right? So what are the ways in which we are actually assessing the efficacy? So for example, I was just reading one article, this may just resonate with you. I was just reading an article where it said that we are moving into a world where we are moving to an attention span of 3 minutes. So just imagine our work span or attention span is being broken into spaces of 3 minutes. So where is the question of deep introspection and thinking, right? And in spite of that, we are expecting to bring about a lot of these kind of integrated processes and systems, which brings about innovative thinking and people capabilities, right? So the question to you is that as professionals, as it's very clear from Barttanu that perhaps we need to really focus on the measures that we really want to put in place, as well as identify or keep the ownership very, very clear. So keeping that ownership and measures specifically in mind, how do you think that we should be really assessing the efficacy or the accuracy at repeated intervals of the processes that we are trying to implement? Because, until and unless we really show some proof, so the proof of the pudding is in its eating, right? So until and unless we show some proof, how are we going to establish the credibility of the processes? So how do you suggest, or how are you seeing that on the floor?
Sure. One thing that I wanted to, before I come to how do we do that, one thing that I wanted to really table is the fact that the proof of the pudding or the reality of all the processes and all the work that we do is at the end, the business results. That is what the organization is there for, those business results. The mission of the organization is the ultimate. And we should be measured on that and nothing else. So everything else that we measure is could be a lagging indicator only to reach to that ultimate goal. So till the time that it is serving the purpose for the organization, and if that purpose is to grow the organization at a certain rate, if that purpose is to penetrate a certain market, a new solution, whatever, so the ultimate goal of the organization, the vision of the organization, that's what is. So measures should be the same. We should not measure it any other way.
Right.
It's important to connect it to the larger measures of the organization. Because the more we create these measures, the more we get lost into this maze of measures and processes and tools. The other thing that I wanted to highlight is that while it is important to bring in these processes, and that's what we are trying to do, But I think the power of it is in the simplicity.
Right.
How minimum the whole thing about the governance, more governance, less government on it, and trying to manage it in the most simplest way, making it easily accessible to people, making making it more and see, it is becoming democratic. In fact,
Right.
I mean, I keep talking about it from the learning perspective. There's no dearth of information and data and material, learning material available to the people. So it's
Right.
not about to create more of it and to give them more. What is important is to actually, so now what we need to teach and what we need to help people learn is how to learn,
Yeah. Yeah.
what to learn, what not to learn.
Right. Right.
Is something that we would want to focus on. So the point that I wanted to bring in was that simplicity of the processes, using technology. When you talked of the attention span, for example,
Right.
making sure that there is ease of accessing information. They don't have to click multiple times to reach certain information. They don't need to filter through a huge set of
Repository.
repository to find what they need to find.
Right.
So that is what we need to simplify, and that's where we have to use technology, but not for the heck of it.
Right.
Only with the mission of simplifying the life of the user. The whole experience of the user is what is becoming very, very critical and is important.
Right. Right. So, when you say the measures, so one thing while I was growing up, my first bosses had told me that let's not become that process paralysis. Too much of matrix, too much of Excel sheets, too much of moving data from here and there really brings about the process paralysis and ensures that we are slowly actually killing the process that we started off. But again, I think going back to what Barttanu had started off saying, that we somehow cannot take away this entire aspect of ROI from the processes or the systems that we are really implementing. That is something which resonates really with the business leaders. So is it enough? So Sabih, what I'm hearing from you is that, is it enough to just ensure that there is an extremely invigorated learning culture in the organization? We provide everything to our people, because we know, again, in McKinsey report had said that nowadays every week 6 to 8 hours every employee is spending on their own learning. And believe me, there is no dearth of good content in free courses, whatever is there. So the desire to learn is definitely there among each and every person who wants to pursue a career, right? So what I hear from you is that let's just give everything to them, make the process extremely democratic, and then let them decide what they really want to do. So let's really focus on creating this culture of learning in an organization, and things will automatically fall in place. Whereas Barttanu, what I'm hearing from you, correct me if I'm wrong, is that we really need to have a very strong ROI process in place, where we are assessing, okay, this is what we are putting in, this is what is coming out, these are the measures basis which we can say that this process is really successful. I think the success matrix would be a balance of both, how we are arriving at that. So the question now that I'm going to start with Barttanu and then go to Sabih is, as per your experience, what have you seen on the ground, some of the best matrices of assessing success of an integrated program? And it can be as simple as how many leaders have been able to create, or whatever you may have. But as per you, what has been some of the most successful matrices of assessing the success of an integrated development program? First, I'll start with Barttanu and then I'll go to Sabih.
I think that is the way forward. Definitely, we were looking at things in an isolated manner. We have to integrate. So nobody has to. Nobody will disagree with this approach. Rather, they will welcome this, right? And the second point that I will see, we have to keep the end thing in mind while doing this. That outcome-based approach. Okay, can we move the needle in terms of the change for the individual and also for the organization, right? Those kind of ownership to drive and make the leaders to see that because of these interventions on a span of, it takes time. You can't get these results in 1 year. Maybe you have to take a span of 3 to 4 years or 3 to 5 years is the ideal way, right? You have to invest, you have to work on it, on the people, right? And then it will work. May work, may not work, but at least you're directionally you are on a path where you will not regret that I have not done the best.
Right, absolutely.
at least I have.
You'll have a peaceful sleep in the night. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yesterday I was thinking, let us say human resource department, talent development department will not be there in the companies.
Yeah.
Let us say HR department is not there.
Right.
What will happen? Shall we the leadership level or the quality will remain same? It will deteriorate. It will go up. Right. We don't do any assessment. We don't do any training. We don't do any coaching and mentoring. Let us say Gautam Adani. How many times coaching, mentoring he does? Or what kind of assessment he has gone through? Right. I was just thinking this subject very, very deeply. And so therefore, what I personally feel is that we need people with head, heart and guts. And our efforts should be to identify such people, passionate people, who has an entrepreneurial fire in his mind. And no assessment is required for such people. How do we create? How do we unlock these potential, unlock these potentials and positive psychology, optimism, and all those things we bring? That fire in people to achieve anything they can do. You need such kind of environment and culture, not the assessment alone. My personal feeling is assessment creates debilitation, fear, anxiety, and debilitation. Okay, at least to a sizable number of people. And we feel that we are filtering and identifying and high potentials, but my personal feeling is that it does not, it limits people. So how do we bring out systems which are more to unleash the potential of people and identify such firebrand entrepreneurial leaders who can handle this kind of challenging and uncertain and with a head, heart and guts? So that should be the objective of any assessment and integration. I personally feel if HR is not there, if that element is not there in your attracting those talent with a fire, missionary zeal, whatever systems you create, you will not be able to make that difference that I am talking of in the end result. These are only systems which HR talks about.
No, absolutely. Because the example that you took, believe me, at that level, you have no idea the level of mentoring and coaching which goes on. Every conversation these leaders are having are with other extremely established leaders, and every conversation is a coaching and a deep coaching and mentoring conversations, right? So these leaders, Tatas, Birlas, etc., they start getting mentored from a very, very early age. And believe me, in breakfast table and lunch table, they are getting mentored continuously.
In a very natural process.
It's a very natural
process, not a professional process
exactly.
Of coaching and executive coaching and mentoring.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many Marwadis and Rajasthani people gets a formal access to your these kind of systems? They are
Sabih wants to.
They are getting coached in the family environment. They see others and they become entrepreneurial, right?
Right.
Sabih, yes, you were.
And no, so I agree to this, and in fact, I keep saying this, that my ultimate vision is that hopefully before I finish my career, there will be no set of people or a department that would be called human resource department. It would transform itself into the culture of the place, and it would be about how are you building that environment for the employees at large? What is the experience that you're giving? The very examples that Barttanu used actually in terms of assessment creating more fear in the minds of people, more apprehensions. But that is only because how have we positioned it to be? If we have been able to put it for development, constructive, if that's something that I am given an opportunity as an employee to opt for, then I won't fear it. If that's what helps me know where do I need to go and what do I need to build on or prepare for reaching where my aspirations are, then I won't spirit. So it is about, to your point, it is about creating the right environment, creating the right culture, and then whatever we may call it. To your point, Dolon, actually that's what happens. So that constant mentoring that is happening. I mean, in the families, father mentoring the son, and so on and so forth. We may not have called it mentoring. There might not have been any format that they had to fill about it. And I think that is what I was referring to.
Absolutely.
We will have to make it as natural, as free flowing as that was. So while we want to give it a structure, while we want to make sure that this becomes a reference and it is easily replicatable, but at the same time, we have to keep it simple. And we can't keep complicating it, to Barttanu's point, that then only HR can understand, and only it's HR metrics and HR language, but the rest of the organizations do not relate to it. I think that's not what it is, and that's what I was saying. So the measure is only the business measure. And have we been able to grow more people? Have we been able to export more talent? Have we been able to hire the best talent from outside? How often retained talent is something and those talents have been able to deliver what we wanted them to deliver. Those are the matrices that we've used and we are using, and I think that's what would continue to be relevant.
So we have a very interesting question here, which says that in the light of the last year, where a majority of learning and development programs have transitioned online, what are some of the traditional things that we need to let go of from a learning and development perspectives? So with this, as we were talking about the cultural thought process, etc., we know what we need to do. Often we don't know what are the things that we need to let go of because we are so used to it. So I think that's a very interesting question. What do you think are the few things we need to stop doing? One thing, absolutely, that process paralysis is something that we should definitely stop doing. But barring that, I mean, again, let me start with Sabih. What are the few things you think that we had done of late, but we should not be focusing on anymore in the present world?
Yeah, so one is the whole idea of being productive when you are at a particular place or with a particular group of people. We've learned it though a little hard way, but the fact that the organizations continue to work and maybe as efficiently, if not more, with people dispersed around. So I think the concept of the head offices and offices where everyone has to be there together every time is something that we will have to rethink. How do we do it? I'm not saying that we would just go the whole extreme of saying that we don't need an office, but at the same time we will have to find a mix. And organizations have started thinking about it. Schneider was on this journey for a while. We were bringing in flexibilities at work and now we've formally declared that at least 2 days a week you work from wherever you are.
Sabih, if I want to focus it or bring it back to learning and assessments and development, that space, what do you think one or the two things that you think we should just stop thinking of or not focus on that anymore?
Okay. Let me think on that one a little.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. So, you continue. I'll come back. I'll give you some examples.
Absolutely. So there is another question which has come up, and I think Barttanu, I would like to start with you on that. So it says that, when there was an IT boom, there were lots of IT hiring which was happening. There was a time when the sales heads were put on the role of talent acquisition and it was not HR people, right? So the question is that with this kind of change happening, what do you think are the perspectives that we need to have?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. So another question which has come is that,
sales head is the talent acquisition,
the sales heads were being identified to lead the talent acquisition kind of teams. Okay, so there was a huge shift from moving from HR to line functions. So do you think going ahead, so there was a lot of discussion on how HR is evolving, how HR's work is evolving, how our thought process needs to change. So what do you think is the future of HR professionals? Do you think with the need to integrate everything to the work that people are doing, there's a high probability that line people will be coming into these kind of profiles? Or the second part of the question is, how do we really keep ourselves updated to ensure our thought process updated to ensure that we are being able to deliver to what is expected?
Now you see, it goes without saying that right man at the right
Right.
job is essential. This lineman coming to HR will solve the problem. I don't really fully agree to. I had the experience of a lot of line people coming to HR in some of my earlier assignments, but one or two people only succeeded. So basically, that fitment
what were the
also
reasons that they failed? Barttanu, sorry, there is a thought process that they can potentially do
too technical. Although they have some knowledge of processes, business, and other things, some of them were so too technical. Their heart and mind were not in the function. And HR generally everywhere, is the function which gets least recognition in terms of visibility, recognition, growth, and business growth, especially. So that thing is not there. So that may not be motivating them. So to be in HR, one has to be absolutely missionary, Jill, and one has to must feel that I'm doing something at least to, and he should have belief in some kind of principles, HR development and people development principles. Otherwise, it cannot happen. So what I'm trying to tell you is that, what we have to do is going forward, commonsensical. Like I like that word, that simplicity. Simplicity, yes, we have to keep, like a natural process of mentoring that happens in some communities. Keep simple, talk less of jargons, talk less of processes, talk less of assessment. Of course, I know as a consulting you may not agree. So what I have seen, assessments are available. That is what I'm saying. When we do assessment center and development center, nothing changes. All the people whom I know, our internal people, you do a panel and see whoever they will assess as potential, they will very categorically say what does this fellow strength, what does his gaps. Same, generally the development center reflects the same. Generally, there may be few exceptions here and there. Generally, so what is the need for complicating all these situations? You have assessments available, so people have to act on them in a manner which will bring change. And so keep commonsensical, keep simple, and outsource or delegate everything to the individual. Move closer to the individual, what he needs. And whatever we draw, training calendar and lot of competency gap, this gap, that gap, the employee does not need. Please give him something which will bring in change in himself, which gets motivation in himself to work on them. Right? So that is how should be the shift. And then measure that outcome and ask him what difference it has made to him. Ask others whether this fellow is the right guy to become a leader. So give them, what we have to do is we have to work for enhancing his self-confidence, enhancing his softer aspects, enhancing his emotional maturity, enhancing his belief in himself and the power. All these competencies, those things he can acquire in his own way. And we have to give him the right opportunity at the right time, at the younger stage itself. If you are able to provide all these elements, I think to a great extent this will make some difference.
Sure. So again, I think you are really talking about creating the right environment and the right mindset for people to really thrive and flourish. And once that is there, perhaps getting too much into details of processes and systems would not be necessary. I think the simplicity of the processes and the right culture and mindset is going to push everybody through and ensure that they're performing to their best potential. Okay. So again, I think as you talk about, there was a specific mention of lots of data, in terms of data which is there in the mind of people, data which is perhaps there reflected. So my question is, whenever we are talking about these various people processes, whether we are following a formal process or whether we are talking about perception which is there in the leader's mind, there is a lot of data. And again, another area that we often don't focus on perhaps is this peer-to-peer coaching and mentoring, which keeps on happening. Whenever we are talking about a process or a program, there's a lot of information in terms of two individuals talking at the same level. And it's very valuable information, which can actually turn into a training program itself, if that information is curated well. Okay. So, Sabih, if I may ask you, when we are talking about assessments or learning, there is a lot of content which is created, and especially in the present world when we have platforms. So, for example, we had implemented one simple program of giving feedback to a section of IT professionals, and there was a platform where they could exchange conversations. So after a couple of days, what we realized is this group, which is an IT LOB within an IT organization, a specific technology, right? Python. These guys were specialists of Python. So Python technologists who are at a manager level of a specific organization had actually come up with a blueprint of how they should be having these leadership conversations with their team members, right? So that was very rich peer-to-peer conversations, which could be really taken on and curated in the organizations, right? So my question to you now is that there is a lot of data which is being generated, whether through assessments, as I said, through learning. How are we, or what are the various ways we should look at curating this data to ensure that it is coming in handy and it's not just getting lost somewhere?
Yeah, and that's what I was referring to when I was saying that, see, the essence of all these processes is exactly what Barttanu was saying, which is about the reality on the ground and about how are you. By the way, what I was trying to also bring in here was the fact that the competencies like what Barttanu. So these are the new competencies actually. These are the new competencies for the future, the ability to empathize, the ability to relate, the ability to trust.
Absolutely.
These are the competencies of the future, given the fact that this is going to be all virtual. So, and a lot of these tools, as you said, do generate this information and data points. Now, to convert these data to information to knowledge is a complex process, and organizations are grappling with it. In fact, there's an information overload or data overload that we are going through at the moment, because there's so much that is available. And that's where it is becoming more and more important for the organizations to leverage some of these smart tools and processes to make sure that, again, to simplify. Albert Einstein said actually the ultimate level of genius is simplicity. If you are able to explain it in a simple way, that is what is ultimate, and that's what Apple did with all these new designs and things that they have been able to bring into the experience of the user. How are they experiencing it? How are we bringing it together? And that's where technology is playing a role. We've been able to put it together in bite-sized, consumable content, which requires which is a separate skill, which is in fact that's a skill which is a specialization, and there are people who would be able to help us, and we are doing that, bringing in content, making sure that it is easy to digest, blending it in such a way that it is not just a video or just a classroom lecture, but a combination of this, which is easy on the go, takes care of their attention span, so is able to generate enough interest for someone who then wants to pursue it. See, ultimately, I'm not saying that someone would become an expert of a subject by watching a small video. That's not the intent. But what we are trying to do is that by that video, if I can generate his or her interest to go and explore more, read more, study more, and then go towards the specialization and certification and build that expertise. Communities of practice is one thing that we've started in the organization. So there are communities like the example that you give. We've got community of people managers, we have community of R&D engineers, we've got community of HR. So these are people who would, similar people, similar needs, similar knowledge, and they all come together, share and discuss more of this, and generate more ideas, and in the process help build the overall competence of that group. So that's something that we are practicing and finding very interesting results. I see that that's going to be a big lever for learning in the future.
Sure, sure. So I think as much as I'm loving this conversation, we are drawing a little bit to the end of this webinar. So saying that, Barttanu, why don't you just run us through some of the practical instances that you have seen, which have stayed with you, of some great people processes in these kind of areas, and also a few of your parting thoughts that you would like to leave the audience with.
Okay. No, I think one of the process that I myself was part of in my earlier company, I worked there for about 5 years in the initial stint, and we drove a process called panel review, which DHL worldwide was practicing, and it was a fantastic process. Okay, in terms of identifying people, identifying their gaps, and then helping them to resolve those gaps and integrating that thing into career. But I came back to that company again. I had implemented it in 2010, 9 and 10, but it did not make much progress. Primarily because it was not owned by business and HR together. None of them owned it the way it deserved it. But when I came back again in my second stint, I realized that this is a process which is going to make some difference. And then I owned it. I owned it means I owned it, right? Owned it. What I'm trying to tell is I really gave my mind, soul, and heart into it.
Heart, mind, and soul. Yes.
Yes, yes. And the result was it became a globally best practice. We drove it for a period of 3 years. We worked with 300 managers, and in the employee satisfaction survey, we used to always, every year we used to add 2-3 new questions in terms of which is one practices that you feel is had made some difference. So amongst the first line managers and some of the second line of some key positions, the survey result was even higher than the pride factor that they used to get.
Sure.
Either equivalent or the same, which will be above than 95%. So what I'm trying to tell you, that is one measure of difference that made to the people. They felt since 1992 employee satisfaction survey was introduced in the company, that was one of the best practice. And second, for the second time after 20 years, something is happening, or maybe 23, 24 years, that one HR practice has been driven so well, right, in terms of involvement, in terms of engagement, in terms of ownership, in terms of measures, in terms of making that difference makes to that individual, right? So highest score it received. And that same project, out of 600 business units of Deutsche Post DHL, that received the best CEO award in the best of employers category. And I, along with my talent development team, we went to receive the award from him. What I'm saying is, the award was not important, but what I'm saying is the kind of ownership that you take to make some difference makes a lot of, So we have to bring that kind of rigor, that kind of ownership, that kind of end measures to see that difference is happening. People should also feel that, not only HR to show it in some, indices or dashboard or maybe report, but people should feel that it has made a difference to them. And the business leaders should feel that, yes, we have now more people available in our key talent pool, like Dravid did. Today, Australia won in Australia, Sabah. They won not because of those talents, yes, but who is the guy who has worked behind that? Rahul Dravid did that difference. He said, only 2-3 people earlier were going as a extra team player. Today 25 players go. 11 players will play, but there are 14 players, extra players are going. And who are these people? He has brought those firebrand cricket lover, cricket passionate young boys, and underground UG19 and the team A, and worked with them for 4 to 5 years personally, what we call, not to influence their how they play, but just to give them here and little bit of encouragement and little bit of feedback. And that is how the change
And he
has
was
happened.
nowhere
And
to
you
be
see his
seen.
personal commitment.
And he was
Nowhere to be seen.
He was nowhere to be seen.
And he had said very categorically that at any given a point of time, my mission is, at any given moment of time, my mission is to ensure that players are available at that point, at any given
Yeah.
point of time. Even 11 replacements are available. So
Correct.
how he did that?
Yeah.
That
So
person.
you bring a very important point that can potentially be the thought process in which we should be really thinking about our talent management or linking the entire talent management processes. Whereas, I mean, if we are talking about our country, the biggest challenge will always remain whether we should be focusing on the strategy of Sachin Tendulkar or Rahul Dravid. But I think specifically when we are talking about this particular process, I think the way he has mentored, changed the mindset, and the kind of pride that he brought about on that particular day for this entire country. So, as you said, the kind.
It was bound to happen, Dolon. It was
Yeah.
bound to happen. He
Yeah,
was
yeah,
silently
yeah.
working for it. He brought the
Yes.
right guy who believes in the game of cricket. He just enhanced their self confidence that we
Correct.
can make that difference.
Correct.
And second point, opportunity I had talked of. They got the opportunity at the right time, and that
Correct.
made that
Correct.
difference.
Correct.
So he had built that mental and emotional power in them. That
Right.
yes, when and the exposure, both
Right.
by playing with international players, IPL, and all those things.
Yeah.
So it was a fantastic talent
Right.
development module. If you
Right.
have to one
Right.
has to
Right. Right.
architect
Yeah.
and then implement. So that kind
Yeah.
of passion is required to make a
Yeah.
difference in the
So,
field of
yeah.
leadership development.
Yeah. So balance it with passion, the right method, ensuring that you are exposing them to the right opportunities, putting them into the right level of stress to enhance their capability to the best potential. I think that's a great point, Barttanu. Thank you for that. And thank you for your time. Sabih, your last thoughts on this topic.
No, sure. So my thoughts are that the organization and the business is evolving very, very fast.
Yes.
Organizations as well as professionals will have to keep their ears to the ground to understand how is this shift happening, to be able to leverage the opportunities that this would bring in. Otherwise, we would lose and miss the bus. Uh, and this would require us to think out of the box most of the time, and a lot of things that we've been doing and the way we have been doing are changing, and I am sure that are going to change very fast in the times to come. We must be able to pivot, and that would require both understanding of the context and understanding of the self. And this self understanding would come from this environment that the organization creates, where it is easy to find references to see where do I stand in the direction of my aspiration and in the career that I want to make and in the career that the organization has, and then opportunities to learn and continuously grow for that. So that's going to be the combination that should work.
Sure, sure. Thanks a lot, Sabih. I think I mean it was really a pleasure having both of you. I think both of you in the end touched upon the entire concept of mindset, being aware of what really people as well as the industry and organization want at this point in time, and giving a balance so that they can really live up to their potential. And I think one last thought which really had resonated with me in a specific article when I read from a professor in London School of Economics, she had said that, at this point in time, the only way to survive is develop this deep mastery. Whereas if we are specialized, we know little of a lot of things. Our competition is actually Google. Our competition is not the other great people who are there in the industry. And those are the people that we are pitching ourselves against. That's one. And second is, I think a lot of changes has happened in the industry, in the society as well. And at least when I was growing up in my initial few years of career, I used to see that lots of people would look at work as a means of achieving something. I am working to get this. I am working so that I earn money so that I can travel and I can get that happiness or whatever it may be. But I think work is now becoming the center of creative reflection, the center of essence. So people are working to have a self-actualizing experience. And I think as professionals in this development space, we have this tremendous responsibility to ensure that we can provide them with the infrastructure, the systems, processes, and the approach mindset so that they can live up to their potential and feel happy about the career that they have been able to build for themselves. So saying that, I hope it was a meaningful experience for everybody who was there on the webinar. And personally, it was a really delightful experience talking to you, Sabih and Barttanu. Thank you very much for your time. And with that, we will be ending our webinar. Again, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dolon. Thank you,
Sabine.
Barttanu. Wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Dolon. Thank you,
Thanks.
Tanushree
Bye.
and all others.
Thank you.
Thanks.